So let's talk about something that sounds, well, a little counterintuitive. Imagine a type of therapy where you don't have to talk about your problem to fix it. I know, it sounds a bit like magic, right? But it's a very real, very powerful way to heal. And it's all about putting your privacy front and center.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever had an issue, something really personal, maybe a bit embarrassing or just super complicated, and you knew you needed help, but the idea of actually saying the words out loud, it just felt like, nope, can't do it?
And that right there, that feeling, that's what we're going to call the unspoken problem. It's this huge tug of war, right? You want help, but you're terrified of opening up. And honestly, that tension is what stops so many people from getting the support they really need and deserve.
Yeah, it's a real internal battle. Part of you is desperate for a solution, for some relief. But the other part, the thought of having to spell out a painful memory, or worse, feel like you're reliving it all over again in front of someone, that's a huge wall. For some folks, it's not just uncomfortable, it can be genuinely re-traumatizing.
Okay, so what's the answer? How would you get help when you can't or just don't want to talk about the details? Well, that's where this whole idea of a content-free solution comes in. Let's dig into what that actually means. All right, it's called content-free hypnotherapy, and the name kind of gives it away. The therapist doesn't need to know the content of your problem, the nitty-gritty details, the traumatic memories, any of that. Their job isn't to analyze your story, it's to guide you through the process of fixing it.
You might also see it called non-disclosure hypnotherapy, which, says it all. The main point is the same. Your story stays your own.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question. How on earth does this work? I mean, if the therapist has no idea what the problem is, how can they help you solve it? It really does sound like magic, but it's not. It's all based on some really fascinating stuff about how our brains are wired.
It basically comes down to 3 core principles. Let's break them down one by one, and you'll see how they all work together to create real change without you ever having to spill the beans.
First up, the power of metaphor. This is so cool. The therapist might guide you through a story, maybe about planting a garden, or cleaning out a messy room, or finding your way through a forest. See, our subconscious mind loves symbols and pictures, so it automatically connects that story to your unspoken problem. And when you solve the problem in the story, like say you finally clear out all the clutter in that room, your brain goes, aha, I know how to do that in real life too.
So here's a perfect example. The therapist might say, imagine you're walking through a gallery, and on the walls are all these paintings that represent different parts of your life. You are the only one who knows what those paintings mean. The whole thing is happening inside your own head, driven by your own personal connections.
Okay, number 2 is all about bypassing what's called the critical faculty. Think of it like a little security guard in your conscious brain that's always analyzing, doubting, and questioning everything. When you're in that relaxed, hypnotic state, that little guard is kind of taking a coffee break. And that's when positive, indirect suggestions can sneak past and get right to your subconscious mind, which is where all the deep-seated habits and beliefs live. And that leads us to number 3, which is maybe the most important idea of all. In a lot of traditional therapy, the therapist is the expert, right? They're supposed to have the answers. Well, this approach flips that completely on its head. The philosophy here is simple. You are the expert on you. Your subconscious already knows what the problem is, and this is the key part, it also knows how to fix it. The therapist is just there to help you access that.
So you might be wondering, how does the therapist even know if it's working? It's actually super simple, a 1 to 10 scale. The client can just give a number to show how they're feeling or how close they are to their goal. No details needed. When that number starts going up, everybody knows things are moving in the right direction.
When you put all this together, you get to one of the biggest benefits of this whole thing, which is what we'll talk about next, the power of privacy, and what that actually feels like for the person in the chair. For the client, this is a total game changer. You don't have to relive horrible memories. The anxiety you might feel before a session, it just melts away because you know you're not going to be grilled for details. It feels way less intrusive, more respectful. And honestly, it's so empowering. You're not just a patient, you are in the driver's seat of your own healing. And this approach is amazing for those issues that are just tough. Things that are intensely personal, super sensitive, or maybe you can't even find the words to describe what's wrong. Even if your conscious mind is totally stumped, your subconscious knows what's up and can start working on it. Which brings us to the final big idea here. Your mind, your solution.
At the end of the day, this whole therapy is built on one foundational belief, a deep, profound trust that your own mind has the power to heal itself.
Here's a great way to frame it. A lot of therapies are like detective work, right? They're digging into your past, trying to figure out, how did I get here? This approach, it's not interested in that. It's 100% forward-looking. The only question that matters is, where do you want to go from here?
Now, this doesn't mean you just sit back and do nothing. Nope, your role is absolutely vital. You don't have to tell the therapist your goal, but you have to have one for yourself. Having a super clear picture of what you want to achieve, that's the destination you plug into your mental GPS. It's how your mind knows where it's going and when it's finally arrived.
So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. We're so often taught that healing means talking, telling your story, confessing everything. But what if that's not the only way? What if, for some things, healing doesn't require confession, but just a little bit of imagination?